Hey guys, Sharpend here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to recreate Vacant's Future Garage pads and lead sounds. It sounds something like that. So this video is based on another request I got to show some of Vacant's synths and pads sound design, and I chose his track Tears off of his latest EP, Deep South EP, to demonstrate that. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to recreate the main pad sound and the main lead sound in the drop of the track. And I'm going to start with the pad sound by opening up Massive. I'm going to set all of the oscillators to saw waves. And I'm also going to detune oscillator 2 and 3 15 cents apart from each other to give it a slightly some slight chorus feeling, like that. And now I'm going to send all of them to filter 1, and I'm going to set it to a low pass filter that I'm going to control using the volume envelope. So I'm going to set the sustain to be all the way up, and I'm going to increase the attack time by a bit. Let's hear it. And I'm also going to add quite a bit of release time. So now we're going to be using our volume envelope to automate the cutoff of the low pass filter by a bit. Like that. So for effects we're going to be adding small reverb. I'm going to set it to all the way wet. We're going to increase the size all the way up, and we're going to make the color the brightest as possible. So we're also going to be adding some chorus, and I'm going to set it to be at around 45% wet. I'm going to increase the rate, but I'm going to reduce the depth so that the effect is slightly more subtle than before, like that. Here's how it sounds with higher depth settings. Way too detuned, so I'm going to keep it pretty low at around 20% wet. So now the final thing for our pad sound is to add some voices in unison, 6 voices, and to also enable the pitch cutoff to increase the detuning by a bit. And that is it for our pad sound. So now for the lead sound, I'm going to be using Massive as well, and as you can see the lead is already programmed in. It has a similar concept to the pad sound. It has all of the 3 oscillators as saw waves, but the oscillator 2 and 3 are pitched an octave above, like that. And here is our main oscillator. So after you pitch oscillator 2 and 3 an octave above, you detune them 15 cents apart from each other, and you set the amp at around 50% up so that it blends slightly better with oscillator 1. And in this synth you also enable the white noise oscillator, and you set it to be the brightest, and you set the amp at around 50% wet. All of them are being sent to filter 1, which is another low pass filter, and it is being controlled by another envelope, envelope 3, which has a long attack time but a very short decay time. So that means that it takes some time for the filter to open up, and then it closes immediately after, like that, compared to a longer attack time. Now for effects we're going to be using the regular reverb function. I'm going to set it to all the way wet. I'm going to set the size to 55% and the density and the color to be all the way up. And we're going to be also using some chorus. I'm going to set the chorus to 50% wet. Again, the rate is pretty high, but the depth is pretty low so that it doesn't sound way too detuned. So now for the volume envelope, as you can see, it's pretty similar to envelope number 3, but it has a shorter attack time and a longer decay time. So that means that after the cutoff automation ends, the synth sustains for a bit longer. As you can see, there are some low frequencies remaining after the cutoff sweep. So altogether the effects, the lead sound sounds like this with the effects. but as you can hear, it fades away pretty fast. So for that, I've created a couple of reverb buses to help it stay sustained for a bit longer and make it sound way more ambient and to make it really feel all of the mix. So let's start one by one. So the first thing we can see is that we have a mids reverb, which is a reverb of around 6 seconds, and it is being high pass, so all of the low frequencies, the bass frequencies aren't there, and the EQ increases the volume in the mids and in the high mids by a bit. It sounds like this. It is pretty long and it adds some sustain time for our main sound. And then we have our highs reverb, which is slightly shorter. It's only at 4 seconds. And it is being high passed quite a bit. Only frequencies above 2000 Hz go through it. And there's an EQ that also high passes it by a bit, so it sounds like this. Almost sounds like sea waves crashing through the shore. And then we have a longer highs reverb, which is being sent from the highs to the next bus of the longer reverb for the highs. This one is at around 6 seconds of decay time, 6.5 seconds, and it is being high passed way more, so it's really only the very high frequencies of the lead. It sounds like this. As you can hear, it's way more swelly and it takes its time to really blend in. And all together with all of the reverbs, it sounds like this compared to this. So as you can see, once you add a lot of different reverbs with very long sustain times, you get a much fuller lead, and now it is a really ambient lead that can fill the whole track. So together with the pad sound, it currently sounds like this. But you can also send the pad sound to the same reverb buses as the lead to give it some additional ambience in the back, like this. So if we listen just to the reverb, it should sound like this. So it's not too muddy, but it still adds some nice ambience in the back. And one more thing that Vacant does to really make his synth sound really big is to also add a very strong Reese bass. So I've covered the Reese basses in a previous video, and this one is exactly the same Reese bass as the previous video. You can check it out. It sounds like this. And then I've added some additional distortion on top, and I low passed it by a bit. So altogether it sounds really thick with all of the leads and pad sounds, like that. So after you have this very big sound and very ambient sound at the same time, as you can see, it fills only until the high mids frequencies, and then there's nothing in the very high end. Right here, as you can see, there's barely any frequencies right there. So what Vacant does is he uses a lot of very sharp hi-hat loops and also some vocal chops with a long reverb and decay, and some delay. And that way he fills all of the frequency spectrum while still keeping his synths very low passed and very old sounding. By that I mean that they don't have a lot of high frequency content. So here's how it sounds with some drums. As you can hear, it sounds a lot fuller. And there's one important thing to notice is that Vacant sidechains his bass, his pads and his leads very tight to any drum sound, so that can create some very cool effects in the lead, like for example here. As you can hear, this note is very loud, and this lead note is very quiet, thanks to the sidechaining that happens right here when the kick hits. And it creates a very interesting effect once you add the hi-hats and the bass, and altogether it gives it a very nice flow, and it helps all of the lead sounds and pad sounds evolve with the drums as well, so it makes it sound a bit more groovy. So altogether, with the sidechaining and all of the drums, it should sound something like this. And that is pretty much it. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments below what subject do you want me to cover up next time.